Canada Land, funded by you.
So, Robert, do you remember watching your first film with Native people? Like, what do you remember seeing?
Probably Westerns. You know, when I was home from school, and this is the 80s, so it was the only thing really on TV, I saw a bunch of Indians getting shot and having really toned abs.
I mean, I watched a lot of films as a kid. The first one I remember with actual natives in it was probably Last of the Mohicans. Seeing Wes Studi, who's like from my own state, that was like a big fucking deal to me. And he's on the big screen and it's this blockbuster film. But I also kind of remember, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis is like the adopted brother cousin of the tribe, and he's the good guy, right? He's the white good guy, and Wes Studi's the bad guy. And that kind of freaked me out. Like, why is the real native the fucking bad guy here? Like, that's weird. I really identified with Wes Studi. I was like, hell yeah, I'll kidnap people. Do what you got to do, friend.
You know, I never seen that whole movie. I've just seen their fight with the tomahawks.
You know, I have to admit, and this is my dirty secret, I'll just spill it here. Fucking love that soundtrack, man. It's fire. Acting, it's like all about pretending you're somebody else. And Charlton Heston, he pretended to be Mexican.
Oh, talk English, can't you?
I'm no cop now. I'm a husband.
You better come outside with me, amigo.
Laurence Olivier. I think he's the one that played Othello.
Oh, yeah.
In blackface. Yul Brynner is the King of Siam.
Oh,
he
yeah.
painted his eyes with a little twist up.
When I shall sit, you shall sit. When I shall kneel, you shall kneel. Etc., etc., etc.
They do it to like every people. It doesn't matter, you know, if it's natives or black or, you know, Mexican. So it's no surprise that a bunch of white people pretend to be natives in movies. But there's one big difference. The actors we're going to talk about today were so good at pretending to be Indian, they even convinced themselves they were Indian. And today we're going to be devoting our entire episode to Hollywood and all the people who have played Native and who kept the act going for the rest of their lives.
There's no business like show business. It's my business. You know, even when the cameras stop, they're rolling, I still think my name is Dancing Crow. Even when I'm with my cousin bowling, he says, Larry, please, it isn't so. Shut up, on with the show.
Welcome to Pretendians from Canada Land, a show where we uncover the fraudsters and phonies who play Indian for profit and fame. I'm Robert Jago. I'm a writer and journalist from the Kwantlen First Nation and Nooksack Indian tribe.
And I'm Angel Ellis. I'm a 15-year veteran journalist from the Muskogee Creek Nation in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. What comes to mind first when you hear the words Hollywood Pretendian?
Ed Chigliak from Northern Exposure.
My uncle won't come in.
Why? Doesn't like doctors?
He doesn't trust them.
Why's that?
He is a doctor.
Oh, really? Which kind?
Which?
Which?
Which what?
Which doctor?
Right.
Your uncle is a witch doctor?
That one bumped me out so much.
That was like the heartbreaker one for you when you found out?
It was like, it's this young, funny native dude who like lives kind of broadly speaking in my region, and he does native stuff and he's really funny, and he like played native in a modern way, so it wasn't just a total stereotype. And then it turns out it's like a blonde guy with a tan.
Oh, man.
That really bumped me out.
So what pisses me off is finding out that Audrey Hepburn did this.
I'm going out there, Ben. There won't be any fight. I'm going out to my people, where I belong.
When I found out she actually played native, it pissed me off and it kind of hurt my heart. So for me, like one of the first people that I knew as a Pretendian, my dad pointed this out to me. You remember the Eyes Cody?
The Crying Indian.
Yes. So Eyes Cody is cast in the Keep America Beautiful campaign advertisements, and everybody's bombarded with these commercials of what they think is a native, and he's looking at the water and it's like all peaceful, but he sees the trash and it makes him sad. And then he's like looking off in the distance at the plains, and someone drives by and throws out garbage, and it makes him sad. And he's sitting there reflecting on the earth being harmed.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. Some people don't.
He has this single tear roll down his cheek, and it kind of plays into that trope that the Native Americans are the like defenders of land and water, which, you know, is kind of a true thing, right? We're the kind of OG protectors of all those things. But the catch is that he's just some white dude playing an Indian.
Hello again. One of our guests today is a Native American whose face is the most recognizable since that on the buffalo head nickel. Please join us in welcoming Eyes Cody.
Nice. You look great. How have you been?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
You worked with John Wayne, many films.
Oh, yes.
John
I made
Wayne,
about 8 with John Wayne.
8?
At Republic Studio, about 8. About 4 of them with Ford.
John Ford.
Yep.
Working with these great stars, looking back at your career.
Oh, I like them all.
And they could have gotten any number of actual Native activists to do those kind of parts, right?
They could have, but I don't know if they would have had the nice craggly features and prominent cheekbones that he had. I mean, for a fake Indian, he's good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could put him outside a cigar store.
Oh, man, he looks just exactly like he should be on a pack of cigarettes. He's stoic as fuck. So, like, the reason they cast him in this, like, Keep America Beautiful campaign is because he has this prolific career in Hollywood. He's, like, got 200 films to his credit. He played Crazy Horse in Sitting Bull.
And now another kind comes. This one wants gold. He is worse than the long knives and the blue coats.
He's basically always been playing Indian, but he wasn't born Eyes Cody. His real name was Espera Oscar de Corte, and he was born in Louisiana.
I owned a horse and I owned a buffalo when I was that little in Oklahoma.
You had a buffalo?
Oh, yeah.
Where in Oklahoma? Growing up?
Fort Gibson, Oklahoma.
Ah, I see. Growing up there.
Fort Gibson, Oklahoma.
So he's actually the child of Italian immigrants. His mom is Sicilian and his father was from southern Italy. And at the time in Louisiana, there was like a lot of anti-Italian sentiment. You know, it's the South. White is right down there, and that's kind of how it is. So there was this whole 30-year period starting around 1890 where there was like a ton of violence against Italians. And in 1891, this angry mob actually lynched 11 Italian folks.
Well, like all at the same time? What'd they do?
The New Orleans police chief had been shot to death. And the story goes that with his last dying breath, this guy uttered a slur for Italians. And so a bunch of the Italians were rounded up in the community.
It's been called a long-standing wound in New Orleans and across the world. Some of the 11 victims killed, all Italian immigrants, had been accused of murdering the police chief, but were acquitted. A mob then stormed the jail.
And even one of them was like a 14-year-old child.
After the assassination, the Italian government threatened war against the United States.
The backdrop of Eyes Cody's life is he's born in 1904, and for him, playing Indian was a bit of a romantic kind of escape from daily discrimination.
You have a prayer. What is this prayer about? Tell me about your Indian prayer.
It's a prayer that my father taught me many, many years ago. I'll say it first in my language. He was
obsessed with the pictures. At the time, Westerns were the powerhouse of film, right? Like, that's what everybody loved. He told people that his father was Cherokee and that his mother was Cree. And that kind of helped get him cast in more Native roles. So he's kind of playing the typical Hollywood Native. You know, sometimes they were like just the couple lines and they were just like there to kind of stand in and be the like pincushion for the cowboys' bullets or whatever, or they were there to ride on a horse, or, you know, just to make something look kind of cool on film, and then natives were usually the bad guys.
Derek, boy.
Are they friendly?
I don't call a poison a snake, my friend, on account of he don't bite me. Snakes is snakes.
So he got cast a lot in that. And to all the Hollywood people, he kind of fit their image, right? You kind of talked about it. He's got a nice chiseled face. He looks pretty good. He's got the dark hair. He was often seen wearing his costumes, you know. He liked them so much that he would just wear them around. Like, have you ever seen the modern pictures of him? He like owns more fringe than a leather store. I don't know what to think about that, but I mean, he's not around today, but his regular outfits also included like a braid wig. So he had his leather and braids and moccasins and beads, and he was just all in.
I mean, if it stops you from getting lynched, I guess.
No, this was up until the 1990s. He was still walking down Hollywood Boulevard with a braid wig and moccasins when Friends was on. It just seems like he was always in costume. I couldn't find a picture of him without his feathers and leathers. And that's just really odd.
You know what you're making me think of? Like, and maybe this is why he was so successful in Hollywood. So there's this Simpsons episode, Radioactive Man in Springfield. And you see like the film guys and they're trying to set the scene. And in order to set the scene, they're painting a horse to look like a cow.
Sir, why don't you just use real cows?
Cows don't look like cows on film. You gotta use horses.
What do you do if you want something that looks like a horse?
Usually we just type a bunch of cats together.
Maybe that's kind of like how I feel with guys like this. You know, maybe in real life he probably wouldn't look that native, but for some reason you get him on screen, he looks hella Indian. Like maybe Indians don't look Indian enough on screen, and so you need like a white guy with like gaunt cheeks and sharp features to actually sell Indian on screen.
Yeah, maybe the Indians don't look Indian enough to him.
Yeah, no, you get an Indian on screen, and for some reason the camera makes us look, I don't know, Thai. But you get a guy like that, and bam, Indian.
Well, like he did it so much that his like, it's like his acting merged into his real life. He just kind of morphed into presenting himself as native every day. And like the longer he went along with it, the more he himself believed it. When I first saw it, you know, I really thought this was a native that I was looking at. Like he kind of was like, oh, he hit all the right identifiers that I thought were what it was to be native. And it took my dad telling me that, you know, it was just some dude who really, really wanted to be native this whole time. And the weird part of it is, and this kind of blows my mind, that he actually married a real native woman and she had children and he adopted actual native kids.
What's been the hardest for Eyes Cody? What's been the hardest?
The hardest thing for me is to try to get my people to believe in themselves and get together.
These American Indian children are having it tough. They feel like no one loves them. That's why they become alcoholics.
Our problem is we should all believe we're all Indians, whether you're 8th or 16th or anything else like that.
Right.
What's weird to me, and like I don't know if you've seen it where actors do the workshops and they try to teach other people how to act. Sir Ian, who played Gandalf, does a really funny one about it. And he does this spoof and skit. And he's like, I show up on a day, I read a script, I pretend to be someone I'm not. And then when they say cut, I go back to being Sir Ian. Cody doesn't ever stop.
Yeah, it's sad. It's kind of pathetic to do your job and then make that your identity. It says there's like a real emptiness in that man's life.
Yeah, it is pretty sad, and like you're getting crucified as an Italian, so you pick another really marginalized people to try to be. But his half sister really didn't like it, and back in the 90s, she tried to out him and said, you know, hey, we're Italians, but he continued to deny it, and he never really fessed up. And it was only after his death that a lot of this stuff started coming out.
That surprises me. How was he not out from the beginning? I mean, he's just such a stereotype. How did people not know?
When you talk about like how can a person fool people for that long? Well, some people like to be fooled. You know, they don't really want to see natives, and they don't really want to know what actual natives are about. They like the Hollywood version of natives, and so they see a guy in a fringe jacket and they're like, oh, hey.
Okay, like here's the thing that non-natives don't know. It's that every single native person you've ever met has been questioned about 10,000 times by some ignorant jerk saying, you don't look native to me. It's like such a common thing because none of us go around dressed like headdresses. And it was really funny is he probably has never had that.
Yeah, because he wore his headdress everywhere.
Yeah, so I guess that's the first sign you're pretending. If no one has ever walked up to you and said, you don't look native to me, you're probably a pretendian.
So the next Pretendian I want to talk about is Sacheen Littlefeather.
I believe the most important thing that we can do as human beings is to know ourselves and to love ourselves.
Now this one's really spicy. Do you remember Sacheen?
Yes, this is a very depressing story.
Part of me was kind of raised with this legend of a person, and then to find out that it all kind of comes apart just freaks me out.
No one walked up to Sacheen Littlefeather and said, you don't look native to me. So maybe that's a clue. She looked very stereotypical. She was the exact twin of the Land O'Lakes lady.
Yes.
Do you know the Land O'Lakes butter lady?
I do. She had the parted down the middle hair, the really gorgeous, the creator favors you, perfect, beautiful, straight, thick black hair. So Sacheen, she's in her 20s and she's really interested in modeling and acting. And she becomes connected to Marlon Brando by some mutual acquaintance because he's really interested in the American Indian movement. He's kind of one of those famous people who kind of stays hip to what's taking place.
I read a book called Indians of the Americas. After reading the book, realized that I knew nothing about the American Indian and that everything we are taught about the American Indian is wrong. Also, what we've learned about the Indians has been largely taught to us by Hollywood and by motion pictures.
And the story goes that before the Academy Awards in 1973, Brando had called her up and was like, hey, so I'm nominated for this award, Best Actor for The Godfather. I don't want to accept the award. If I win, will you go on stage and give a speech instead? And at the time, there's this huge standoff at Wounded Knee in South Dakota. The FBI are bearing down on the natives who are holed up. About 200 activists are occupying the town of Wounded Knee on the Pine Ridge Reservation.
For 80 years ago, at the tiny village of Wounded Knee, 200 of their forefathers were massacred by American cavalry in the last major action of the Indian Wars. After that action, Wounded Knee remained a quiet place until a few weeks ago when a group of militant demonstrators from the American Indian movement raided this store, stole rifles and ammunition, and proceeded to take over the village.
In the middle of all this, Brando, he gives this opportunity to shed national light on a really important Native issue. And he wins the award for the role in The Godfather, and Sacheen gets on the stage.
Hello, my name is Sacheen Littlefeather. I'm Apache, and I'm president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee. I'm representing Marlon Brando this evening, and he has asked me to tell you that he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award. And the reasons for this being are the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry. Excuse me. And on television in movie reruns, and also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
The legend is that John Wayne himself was so furious he was waiting in the wings wanting to drag her off stage, and he had to be held back by security. When Americans heard about that, and they saw this pretty young woman getting booed, and a lot of people kind of felt sympathetic to her and felt that she was really brave for what she did. Robert, that speech was hailed as a victory by the American Indian movement, and a lot of people to this day consider it, a turning point, the moment that the sympathy of the American public shifted a bit from the cowboys to the Indians.
What I did at the Academy Awards affected the outcome of what happened at Wounded Knee in 1973. Now, I knew that I was on the right track when word got to me from Coretta Scott King, who was the widow of Martin Luther King, congratulating me at what I did at the Academy Awards. I knew I was on the right track. And when word got to me from Cesar Chavez congratulating me about what I did, I knew I was on the right track, despite what anybody else said. what I did by refusing the Academy Award for Marlon Brando, it was by an Indian, me, about Indians for Indians, and it took place in the glitz and the glamour of the Academy Awards.
So that's how Sacheen Littlefeather becomes like a household name amongst natives. She continues to be a Native American activist throughout her life.
I mean, my being exotic really paid off in Italian films. They loved me. And that's when I met, of course, other Native Americans, and we shot in Indian country. We had our great times out there in Indian country.
And then, after her death, Jacqueline Keeler, the Pretendian hunter, who we talked about the last episode, she gets in touch with Sacheen's sister. And Sacheen's sister revealed that their family is Mexican. You know, my dad feels like she did these like incredible things and stood up and was courageous. But then also it's like, man, why did you lie about it? That's where the hurt comes, because I think that you can be an ally and you can be honest and you could probably even become ingratiated into the community.
Yeah, I guess I see that point, because I mean, had she just been out about it and just been like a strong militant ally, she could have been as hardcore and militant as anybody, as long as she was honest about it.
Yeah, because I think she actually claimed a certain tribe.
I'm Sacheen Cruz Littlefeather. I'm White Mountain Apache and Yaqui, and I'm half Indian and half savage. Half Indian and half white.
Oh, that's a bad look.
Yeah. And then that's where people get hurt.
Just coming in and saying she claimed a certain tribe, that's what makes it bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where it just goes, ooh.
So Hollywood kind of has this like cycle, right? Like first the Indians were the villains, right? The cowboys were the good guys, and white actors were sprayed darker or put on makeup to make, you know, like put on red face so that they could play the natives. Starts out with Indians are the villains. Then they were the noble savage villains, you know, they're still the bad guys, but they kind of have that little bit of an anti-hero kind of thing. Like, yeah, they're bad, but can you blame them? And an example of that is Scar in the John Wayne movie, The Searchers. He's played by this white German actor, Henry Brandon.
You big shoulders. Young one, he who follows.
You speak pretty good American. For a Comanche.
And then the 60s come around, and the Indians are suddenly kind of fashionable. But Indian actors are not. Instead, the Indian in the film is a white guy who somehow turns into an Indian, such as Dustin Hoffman in Little Big Man.
No.
Do you hate them? Do you hate the white man now?
Ew.
Or like later on, Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves, or Daniel Day-Lewis in Last of the Mohicans. And that brings us up to our final Pretendian of the episode, Johnny Depp.
This episode is brought to you by AG1.
Robert, take me through your typical morning routine.
My typical morning routine. Okay, so I wake up, turn my alarm off, and go back to sleep. Later, the cat wakes me up asking for food. So I drag myself to the kitchen, feed the cat, and on my way back, I pass the fridge. I grab the AG1. I do my quick mix. I drink that, and then I get ready, and I'm out the door for a 60-block walk to work.
I think I'm drinking a little less coffee when I start the day with AG1. So what are you noticing?
I'm not really a coffee person, but I do notice that it is giving me some extra energy for my walk, and it sort of lasts through the whole day.
AG1 is a foundational nutritional supplement with 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients.
It's a comprehensive support for overall health and wellness and helps with focus, mood, and energy.
If you're looking to replenish your daily nutrients in a single scoop, check out AG1.
If there's one product I had to recommend to elevate your health, it's AG1, and that's why I'm excited they're partnering with Pretendians.
If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/pretendians.
That's drinkag1.com/pretendians. Check it out.
I must admit, Jack, I thought I had you figured. It turns out you're a hard man to predict.
Me, I'm dishonest. And a dishonest man you can always trust to be dishonest. Honestly. It's the honest ones you want to watch out for.
Do you know anything about Johnny Depp's claims to indigeneity?
A bit, yes. From Vancouver, growing up here in the 80s, Johnny Depp was always in the news because this is where they filmed 21 Jump Street, and he was always getting in fights.
Johnny Depp, he's been acting since the 80s. His first film's Nightmare on Elm Street. And he's had this great and successful career. Remember Edward Scissorhands? Like, he's like super fucking white, you know? And I know that some of that was makeup, right? But it does start looking more like he's been sitting in tanning beds trying to become, you know, Big Chief or something. But he's also, around the early 2000s, he would casually mention in a bunch of interviews that he was Native. And he claimed that his great-grandmother or someone was like a lot Native. He said that he was thinking that she was Cherokee or Creek. He did mention this in a bunch of interviews during that Pirate of the Caribbean era. So maybe he's a Indian pirate?
I can remember my grandparents, talking about how, we had some degree of Indian blood. And it was, for me, a point of pride. As a very little kid, it was a great point of pride.
So, before he became a pirate, he actually did take a shot at playing Indian, like professionally. This is like 95. It's called Dead Man. It has a great native actor. I think it's Gary Farmer. I can't remember.
Gary Farmer's in Res Dogs.
Thank you. He's in Res Dogs. He plays like the grandpa or whatever, right?
He's uncle with the Sonic cups.
Okay, yeah. So he's still around. He plays the stereotype of the half-breed who's rejected by both sides. You know that one.
Oh, God.
So freaking tired. It's like a Cher song. And Johnny Depp is an accountant. He finds him. He has a mystical journey, becomes an outlaw, and eventually he dies and he gets face paint and he becomes like an Indian and he sends him off to the happy hunting grounds.
Time for you to leave now, William Blake. Time for you to go back to where you came from.
You mean Cleveland?
Back to the place where all the spirits came from. And where all the spirits return.
In that one, Johnny Depp is slowly becoming sort of like one of the Indians, if not an Indian himself. And then he takes it a step further in his directorial debut, and that's with a movie called The Brave.
I'm already offended at the title.
Oh, right. I didn't even think of that. I'm so dumb. Oh, my God. Oh, as in a brave.
Your mind's been flipped and you didn't even make that like close connection.
This movie is to trauma porn as Two Girls, One Cup is to porn.
Oh my God.
Disgusting. And there is Johnny Depp in brown face, or maybe he's just very tanned, with long hair and a headband. He's playing an Indian and he's drinking no-name liquor out of the bottle.
You actually gonna drink that? No wonder you people are on your last leg.
What do you want?
Unless you plan on putting that pretty little wife and kids of yours on a plane to fucking Bora Bora, I'm gonna find them. And then I'm gonna kill them. And then I'm gonna fuck them. See you in the movies, Tonto.
What the hell? Like, what? I have never heard of this movie. Ever.
Well, that's because it was never released in the Americas. So they released it at Cannes. And I guess after they got the feedback there, they decided to hide it. It's every embarrassing, humiliating, just cheesy-ass joke trope about our people. And he crams it into one film. I looked at some of Johnny Depp's interviews about this movie. And there's this one he does with this Japanese reporter. And he just sums it up. He says, you know what? I don't like the winners. I like the losers. I like the losers in the world. And all it is him just trying to portray us as the biggest losers in history. And that's who he identifies with. That's what he wants to be about. He wants to be with the losers.
So Johnny Depp has been like laying the tracks for his Indian train, right? Like he is started with this crazy shit. It comes to a total head in 2013 when Depp was cast in this controversial role of Tonto, a Comanche sidekick in The Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger.
Him, my friend. Your friend? Is white man never friend of Indian? Him been friend for many years. No man could have better. Give you my word.
So what do you know about The Lone Ranger?
I know that the Johnny Depp one involved him wearing a goddamn bird on his head.
Like a whole ass looking chicken.
Like it's a whole crow or a raven or something on his head.
Tonto literally means fool, right? And that he's always the sidekick to the Lone Ranger, the white smart guy. And like I've seen the trailer of Johnny Depp's version, and he does play just a complete bamboozled dipshit.
Something very wrong with that horse. Horse dead.
I can see that.
And it's after the release of the movie that Johnny Depp starts talking about his native ancestry, and he starts coming under fire, and he's accused of appropriation.
Don't believe Johnny is native at all.
Oh, God. And the Indian is Johnny Depp, right?
So Indian Country Today did an investigation and found that he has no native ties to any tribe and has never been recognized by a nation. And this really seems like the story that he just kind of made up. So many in the native community have called him a Pretendian for quite a long time. It's almost like he's like famously Pretendian. But what is weird and interesting is during the promotion of The Lone Ranger, he gets adopted by a Comanche woman named LaDonna Harris.
Johnny Depp's portrayal of the famous Native American sidekick got a huge stamp of approval this week. LaDonna Harris, esteemed Comanche and president of Americans for Indian Opportunity, announced that the actor would be joining the tribe, saying in a statement, "It seemed like a natural fit to officially welcome Johnny into our Comanche family."
A Native American activist who lives in Albuquerque has a new son. He's 48, and he's a Hollywood A-lister.
Johnny Depp is now a member of a Comanche family and has an Indian name that suits him perfectly.
His Indian name is Ma-Wo-Me.
It's shapeshifter.
This was pretty convenient for Johnny, and the timing seemed to fit just right with the PR campaign around the Lone Ranger movie. The adoption made some of those questions quiet down a little bit about whether or not he had any business playing Tonto. And as you just heard, the press went ahead and just assumed that if he was adopted by a Comanche woman, that meant he was now a member of the tribe. But I called the Comanche Tribal Citizenship Office to find out if that's true. And Robert, they had a bit of a laugh at my question and told me that Johnny Depp was absolutely not an enrolled citizen of the Comanche Nation.
They must be pretty pissed off in that community about the whole thing.
Actually, it's kind of strange. I asked around and chatted with some Comanche community members to find out how they feel about Johnny Depp claiming to be one of them. It's kind of a mixed bag. Some older folks kind of roll their eyes at the whole thing, and some younger folks think it's kind of cool. And what kid hasn't seen Jack Sparrow? Overall, I got the feeling that the Comanche community is sort of ambivalent about Johnny Depp. They're not really sure if they want people to think he's one of them or not. I figured I should call the Comanche tribal office back just to confirm that Johnny Depp is 100% not a Comanche. But this time the call went down differently.
Comanche Nation enrollment.
Yeah, hi, my name's Angel Ellis, and I'm a journalist, and we've been kind of diving into Johnny Depp's past. Is he a citizen of the Comanche Nation?
Well, ma'am, I'll tell you this right now. I can't give out personal information on any tribal enrolled member due to our privacy laws.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to speak on Johnny Depp's behalf. Ma'am, I'm very limited on what I can talk to you about.
Sure.
And it's probably best from here. If you need to know anything else, you maybe email us.
So, Robert, once Johnny Depp is adopted into a Native American family, guess what he does next?
I don't know. Get diabetes?
Close. He signs a $20 million deal with Dior to be the spokesman for their new Indian-themed perfume. Let me show you the ad. And while you watch it, tell the people what you're seeing.
It starts in LA, in downtown LA. And there's Johnny Depp. He is as they say in the 80s, grinding.
I gotta get out of here.
Oh, he's leaving LA. He's passing oil derricks in the desert.
Which way?
And there's a buffalo for some reason. Eagle screech, can't not have that. And there's a coyote.
I can feel it.
Wow, he's taking it all off.
Sauvage. Dior.
Sauvage is the French word for savage. So if you go back to the ochre crisis or something, when the white mobs were stoning Mohawks in the streets, the word they were screaming was sauvage. It is a racial slur in French, and the English version is savage, which is also a racial slur against Native people.
So I don't know a single place in the world where I, as an actual Native, can go and say a terrible racist word and make $20 million from it. And Johnny Depp did that with the Sauvage campaign.
See you in the movies, Tonto.
So, Robert, that's our look back at the history of the weird phenomenon of Pretendians in Hollywood. It started way back, and it kept happening right up until Johnny Depp. But I don't know. Maybe things are different now.
Maybe. I mean, we finally have indigenous creators directing film and TV like Sterling Harjo or Jeff Barnaby. And I'd hold up any episode of Res Dogs against stuff like Johnny Depp's The Brave any day.
So things do seem better than when I was growing up, when nobody was representing me in a good way. I sat at Sundance last year and watched Lily Gladstone in Fancy Dance, and it was one of the most beautiful films I've seen in my life. And I mean, Lily was in the room during Q&A, and she is this fucking beautiful, majestic, articulate, and talented woman. I wish I had seen more of her when I was growing up. But some things never change. Most people know Lily Gladstone from the movie Killers of the Flower Moon, a movie all about Native Americans. But the main characters were still white guys, played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro.
Well, at least that movie was clear that the white guys were homicidal psychos trying to rob Native people. They didn't magically transform into natives who were better at being native than real natives. So maybe that's progress.
Maybe that's just showbiz.
And get me a screen test. Well, I know them stars gonna shine for me. I'm gonna be whoever I need to be.
Next time, on the last episode of the season, Angel and I ask the question at the heart of all of this. Why does someone pretend to be indigenous? And what's it like to keep the lie going every day of your life? Our executive producer and editor is Jesse Brown.
Additional production from Caleb Thompson.
Julie Shapiro is our contributing editor.
Canada Land's editor-in-chief is Karen Pulesi. Thanks for listening.